I love film. I love making it. I love watching it. I've seen Pulp Fiction and Parasite. I know who Sergei Einstein is. I have a letterbox. I'm what some may call a typical film bro. I'm also a figure skater, and I have a lot of opinions. The coffee is becoming a recurring character in my videos. This is not good. Now, a lot of sports have sport-related media that is popular attached to them. So like with volleyball, you have Haikyuu. With martial arts, you have The Karate Kid. with baseball, you have movies like The Sandlot or Field of Dreams. For wrestling, fighting, you have Fight Club, I guess. Rock climbing has Rocky. You have basketball and High School Musical. All sports and Air Bud. Hockey and the Tooth Fairy. Okay, so maybe media based off of sports is a little bit lackluster. And also the fact that I don't tend to watch those kinds of things also probably contributes to it. But when it comes to figure skating, we have a really mixed bag of a lot of reductive stereotypes, right? We have the angry, abusive Russian coaches, and you have the unrealistic expectations, and you have recreational skates on concrete on like, oh boy, and Johnny Weir, I guess? Not to say that those aren't representative of figure skating to an extent. I mean, a lot of the time stereotypes have to come from somewhere. Looking at you, Yuri. Some stereotypes are, I guess, a lot more common than others. Those are the ones that tend to have some semblance of truth, I guess. Not always. But the representation is crappy. It's not great. So instead of teaching you all about inline skating this week, I'm gonna make a crappy video essay complete with a script, fancy graphics, and a lot of garbled lines because I didn't take the time to memorize the script. Okay, I wrote this at like 2 a.m. last night because I couldn't sleep. And yeah. Side note here, I have recently come to realize that I've genuinely been burned out for like several months now, and I'm so sorry these videos are getting so chaotic. I swear like eventually I'll get back on track. Just let me get all the craziness out. It's all good. It's all good. I'm so sorry. Please don't unsubscribe. Title card. I need to sit down for this. Okay. Ow, my foot! Hockey Boy and Lava Girl, 1992. What's the real name of the movie? C. Cutting Edge. The Cutting Edge. So when it comes to figure skating movies, I think this is the classic one, right? It's the one people think of first. For better or for worse, I would argue for worse, but you know, some people like it, I guess. It made $25 million at the box office in 1992. I don't know how impressive that was back then, but like I'd say it was a solid B-rate blockbuster, right? Yeah. So the basic premise of the film is that a hockey boy at the Olympics gets injured because fights, and so he can't play hockey again. And then a shady Russian figure skater coach is like, hey, you should become like a pair for this pair skater who's like really, really annoying and has fired every one of her last partners before, and she has a reputation within like the figure skating community that she's like an awful partner to work with and no one ever wants to work with her, so like he can't find any partners for this skating girl, and he's like, hey, hockey boy, you should be her partner. I'm gonna teach you how to figure skate and you're gonna go to the Olympics again. And he's like, okay. And like the timeline for it's a little bit iffy. It's between a few months and like 3 years that they've trained. I'm assuming it was probably like a year that they trained, but I don't really know. I'm sure in the movie it's made kind of clear, but it's not in the Wikipedia synopsis of the film, and frankly, I don't want to watch it again. So, yeah. So they train to go to the Olympics. He learns what a toe pick is. I mean, if you haven't seen it before, you might as well go watch it, I guess. It's like I guess it's a rom-com. It might be a romance film. I don't really know how you want to classify it. But it's an interesting one, I will say that. There's the obvious critiques for it, I suppose. You know, a hockey skater who has grown up his entire life training as an elite Olympian for hockey is gonna have some hockey-based habits in his hockey skates, and when he switches to figure skates, he's not gonna have an easy time learning to do anything. I feel like I don't have to say this, but you know, as a pair skater, even if you're not the one that's flying through the air during throws, you still need a really good understanding of how to figure skate and how to do footwork and how to do jumps and how to do spins and how to hold your partner properly and like how to do things safely. And people train their whole adolescent lives for this and you can't, I swore, and you can't learn it in a year, right? Right. Obviously this movie isn't realistic. Like that's duh. But Azuki, it's just fiction. It doesn't have to be realistic. Yeah, I guess. I mean, as an idiot who engages in the consumption of a lot of fan content, shall we say, I admit I've read significantly worse plots before. Like, way, way worse. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but it does deserve a little bit of credit for being, like, the first figure skate movie that people think of a lot of the time, I guess. And, like, for, like, a cheap one-off blockbuster that's, like, maybe B-rate, you know, it works. It's alright. Except it's not really a one-off, is it? There's 3 others. There are 4 total The Cutting Edge movies. 4 of them. I'm gonna stop here because I just don't have the mental capacity to watch the other 3 right now. So here are their Rotten Tomatoes and Letterboxd scores. I'm using Letterboxd. Why? Because Letterboxd tends to be pissier about giving scores, and I like confirmation bias. 2 stars, I guess. Good job being like one of the first big figure skating movies, and like one of the ones people still think of today. Extra points for Hockey Boy, looking kind of like Paul Rudd. The Ice Princess, 2005. So imagine this, right? It's 2011. A tiny Asian child in the middle of rural Canada goes to the library and picks up a copy of The Ice Princess. 10 years later, they are sitting on a stool talking about figure skating movies and the fact that they have spent way too much of their own money on skating. It's safe to say that this movie had a bit of an impact on me as a kid. Ice Princess follows the story of a high school senior working on a physics project to try to get accepted to her dream university. It's a Disney movie, by the way. Having always loved ice skating and loving watching figure skating, she decides that she wants to make an analysis of jump mechanics. In researching her report, she joins a Learn to Skate program, and she quickly realizes that she learned how to do an axel. She moves up ranks very quickly, landing in juniors or seniors before regionals, I can't totally remember. And without giving too much away for those who want to pause and go watch, again, spoilers ahead, doy. She learns how to do a triple. She did it all in 1 season, which is absolutely insane. Okay, well, we'll talk about the pros of this movie first. Arguably, this movie is the reason why I'm here right now today, right? This is the reason why I started skating, because as a 9-year-old, as a 10-year-old, I watched that movie and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be just like her. I want to learn how to figure skate. It looks so fun and it looks beautiful and it like looks so empowering and I want to try that. And that's why when my sister joined Learn to Skate, I was like, hey, can I do that as well, please? And I'm sure I'm not like the only one. I've heard of stories of other people who watched The Ice Princess and realized later that they want to start ice skating, right? And that is amazing. It's no surprise that Disney movies can be really impactful on kids. You know, you have like your Pixar movies, obviously, but like, I mean, even just like their live action kind of B, C, D rate movies, you have some really good ones in there that inspire kids, and I think this is one of those. For a film to be able to inspire kids is really, really valuable, I think, and it's really amazing. On the other hand, you know, you can easily cop it out for a lot of annoyances, I suppose. You know, it follows an interesting story. I wouldn't call it realistic by any means. You know, like any adult or teen skater can tell you, getting your axle is really heckin' hard. Getting your triples in 1 season is genuinely impossible. Like, it's not something anyone can do when you're starting out falling on your face when you get on skates, right? It's a Disney movie, it's not gonna be realistic. And that's fine, like, it's a movie for kids. It's a movie for little kids. That's what it is. It serves its purpose. Here's some great things about it. It doesn't fall into really annoying stereotypes about nerds who can't do sports. It has Mr. Kim in it. That's a plus. It's inspired a lot of young kids. It also doesn't perpetuate really awful stereotypes and tropes about figure skating, like eating disorders and mental health crises and scary Russian coaches, as true as some of those may be. So sure, it's cheesy, but it does a really great job capturing the magic and beauty of figure skating, and I think that's really, really good. That's really good. So 2.5 stars, great effort. Kiss and Cry, 2017. Oh boy, it's on Netflix. I tried watching it yesterday. It didn't work out. I only made it about 30 minutes in. It was bad. Yeah, it's not a great movie. I'm not a stranger to bad stories, right? I used to read a lot of Wattpad. Like 90% of the people watching this won't know what I'm talking about. But to like the few of you that do, I used to read Wattpad. I read Wattpad for 4 years, right? Before I learned about AO3. I can read bad stories. I can hear and watch and listen to bad stories. And I can sit through it. I couldn't sit through this movie. That means something. Oh boy. Okay. Go figure. 2015. Nope. 2005. Go figure. Go figure. 2005. Kiss and Cry scared me off, so I didn't watch it. Rotten Tomatoes says this. I trust them. I'm sure they did their research and actually watched the movie. Here, we're gonna finally get into the heavy hitters. Blades of Glory, 2007. Instant classic. Not only is this an artfully eclectic cast of Buddy the Elf, Napoleon Dynamite, BoJack Horseman, and Leslie Knope, and Pam Beesly, and Mr. Incredible, but this movie does one thing that none of the other movies on this list do, and it doesn't take itself seriously. Oh my god, thank God for that, right? This movie aggressively acts like a clown. Whether you enjoy this movie or not is entirely subjective. It's based on whether you enjoy content that pokes fun at figure skating. Some people like it, some people don't. You know, that's fair. Some might interpret this as like comedy at the expense of figure skating as a sport, and I get that interpretation, because that's how I felt the first time I watched it. And if you take the outlook that this is a comedy film about the chemistry between Will Ferrell and Jon Heder with like the backdrop of like an absurd Olympic Games, then this movie's actually kind of entertaining. Like, it's better than other Will Ferrell movies, you know? It's no Elf, but like it's better than a lot of Will Ferrell movies, to be fair. Comedy gold, figure skating pyrite. 3 stars for effort. It's probably sadly the best movie on this list. Badazuki, best movie you forgot about. I, Tonya, 2017. I have mixed feelings about this movie. On one hand, from what I can tell, it seems to be a fairly accurate portrayal of the Tonya Harding scandal. And as someone who didn't live through that time, it's great for giving me a lot of important context into the scandal in a very digestible way, and I appreciate that, right? The slow-mo of like the jumps are really pretty. The film is made decently, I guess. It's nothing spectacular, but it's not bad. I don't have too much to say about this movie, to be honest. Frankly, you guys probably don't want a film review and like analysis on technique and crap. So I will say that the film is pretty dark, and I guess it was like an accurate portrayal of real life events, allegedly. But I get like a heavy feeling in my stomach every time I watch it, and I don't like watching this movie too much. It did teach me that Tonya Harding decided to be a wrestler after it, so that was interesting. It's less reductive of the sport than like other movies, but at the same time it's, you know, it casts figure skating in a really, really dark and negative light, I think. And I would give it 3.5 stars if I'm being generous, but I'm leaning more towards 3 stars. Spinning Out. Spinning Out is a Netflix series. I think it's a Netflix original. I'm pretty sure it's a Netflix original. I have a friend who was hired by the production company to like be in it and skate, which is really cool. As for the show itself, I watched maybe half a dozen episodes before I lost interest. You can tell that this video is really well researched, huh? I haven't seen any of these movies or this content in months, except for the one I'm reviewing next. It's not fun to watch. Its portrayal of BPD is really annoying to me in the sense that like it's not accurate, and I think it demonizes BPD a lot, and it demonizes mental health issues a lot. Its portrayal of SH behavior is really bad. If you guys remember like the whole controversy with 13 Reasons Why a few years ago, it felt like that but masked behind figure skating, which I didn't like. Like that's not the right vibe. Don't get me wrong, there are ways of pulling off like really dark and rich plots and stories and themes in media. I just don't think this is it. It's like it's 13 Reasons Why, but like figure skate flavored. They missed the mark a little bit. A lot of these darker movies and TV shows cast figure skating in this really dark and horrible light, I think. And I acknowledge that there are a lot of ugly things behind the scenes in figure skating. You know, we joke about it a lot, about Yuri being like an abusive coach. But there are a lot of major problems with the way she coaches. This is getting political. Wait a minute. There are a lot of issues within figure skating as a sport, as a community, etc. There's a lot of issues with mental health and a lot of issues with eating disorders and things like that. And I think it's really important that we do acknowledge and address these issues. And a lot of these movies and shows, they take these things that, again, we as a sport and as a community really need to work on, and we really need to try to work towards fixing these issues. But it takes these things and it just turns them into content. Cheap bits of content. And it really, really grinds my gears. All these issues are major issues within figure skating, and they shouldn't be just used as a cheap one-off plot point for all of these movies and TV shows. Because we need to, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. Another thing is a lot of these movies and TV shows, they make me wonder why the skaters are skating in the first place. Like, their characterization makes it feel like they don't want to be there. And frankly, I don't want to be there watching it then. You know, they make these characters really hard to sympathize with. And especially if they clearly don't like skating anymore, then like, I'm not going to be able to sympathize with them. Because I love skating. I'm lucky to still love skating. And I want something more like Ice Princess, but mature, so that like I feel like passionate and empowered, inspired to go out and skate after watching these movies. I don't want to feel like I want to crawl under my bed and cry for the next 3 hours. Also, after the second episode, Spinning Out just feels like a will they, won't they story. And it gets very, very, very repetitive and boring. I mean, it's one of those stories where you could sub out skating for literally any sport where there's like pairs. Like, it could be like tennis. I don't know. I don't watch sports. And it would be the same story. Like, I don't know, you roll your ankle and now you can't play tennis, and then after rehab you blah 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 blah, and like, it would be the same story. It would be the same story. Whatever. Also, here's something that really bothers me. A lot of these movies and shows use really, really crappy plastic skate guards and like recreational skates, and for some reason it really, really bothers me, like way more than it should, right? It just feels like the costume and prop department didn't do enough research, like at all. I'm not a fan of Spinning Out. I'm not a fan of Tonya. I'm not a fan of The Cutting Edge. I'm not a fan of Kiss and Cry. But Azuki, you're missing one more. Yuri on Ice. So a lot of people have strong opinions on anime, and that doesn't change in the skating fandom. From what I can tell, like, there's not many skaters who actively despise Yuri on Ice, which is a good thing, I guess. It is worth noting, this is so squeaky. It is worth noting my bias here that I love a good queer-coded and non-queer baity story. And I watched this series just as I was getting interested in figure skating. The soundtrack of the movie is like a regular on my skating playlists. I have a Yuri wig, right? I have a Yuri jacket, I have a Yuri t-shirt, and also I have, like, I made my own Duran sweater, right? I like this show a lot. And I also have the Japanese box set complete with like the shiny ones. Like, it's so, like, this one's holographic. Look at that, it's so pretty. So yeah, I like this anime a little bit. I've memorized my favorite lines. I've made my sister and my mom watch it. In my defense, they also really love it too. And generally, I really like this anime a lot. Is one of my favorite animes. Like, it's right up there with like Death Note. It is probably the most accurate depiction of figure skating that I've seen, at least. It has hands down the most accurate depiction of the Grand Prix system in any piece of media aside from the actual Grand Prix. This show, they hired genuine choreographers to choreograph all the programs, even for the side characters, and it was made by people who love figure skating, and it is actually accurate, and it is the reason why I understand the basics of ISU scoring. The characters are all fleshed out, and they all have different, separate, genuine personalities, which is not something that can be said for anything else on this list for some gosh dang reason. The art style and the scenery are really pretty. There's a great balance of comedy and real raw emotions. The pacing is great. It doesn't queer bait. There's a lot of great representation of different cultures and different sexualities and skating styles. And you have your obligatory absurd costumes. Like, it has everything that real figure skaters have, right? Right. It's equally accessible to non-skaters and figure skaters alike. It actually explains how scoring works. I can watch this with my non-skater friends and like we'll both enjoy it equally, which is amazing. Here's a big one. None of the characters are involved in absurd hookups. I love this show. I really do. It's so good. I think the issue with all these other skating movies and TV shows is that skaters, we start noticing all the things that are wrong with them. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm an I start noticing all the things that are wrong with them. And it really makes it hard to enjoy these shows and movies. And Yuri on Ice doesn't do that, thank God. So the show centers around Victor and Yuri. Basically, Yuri looks up to Victor as a skater his entire life, right? And he finally gets a chance to skate on the same ice as Victor at the Grand Prix finals. At the finals, mind you, right? So he's top 6 of the world. And then because of the stress and the anxiety, he kind of flubs everything, and so he gets 6th place. And he feels really dejected and kind of depressed, and he misses out on nationals that season. He decides to kind of take a small break from skating, and he doesn't really know what he's going to do with his life. But as a bit of a pick-me-up, he goes to his local rink where his old skating buddies are all working now. Because they all used to and still do love Victor as a skater, he shows them that he's learned one of Victor's programs, and he skates it really cleanly. And the Friends kids turns out to have filmed the whole thing of him skating through this world-class champion's entire program cleanly. And they upload it to YouTube, and it blows up. And that draws the attention of Victor. And Victor takes the year off to come to Japan and coach Yuri so he can skate again. And that's the basic premise of like the first episode. And it's like, I don't want to spoil it, but at the same time, like, it's been 6 years, I think. So you probably know what happens. If not, is really hella gay, and I love that. I love that so much. Point being, this show explores things like anxiety and mental health and sexuality and inter-skater relationships and stuff like that without using it as plot points, without screwing up the figure skating as a whole, and without making it seem like an awful sport, while showing like the beauty and the art and the fun of skating. And it handles everything very well, which these other shows don't. These other shows and movies, you can clearly tell that most of the crew just don't watch figure skating, and it's really obvious. And this one, you can Yuri, the creators watch figure skating. The creators love figure skating, and you can tell and you can feel it when you watch it. And that is the thing that sets it apart from everything else. I'm losing my mind. I'm gonna move on to the conclusion. So it gets 4.9 stars. It loses the 10th of a point because it hasn't given us Ice Adolescence in 6 years. My point is that we need better skating content. Other than Yuri. Yuri is great. Everything else sucks. A lot of these shows have abusive Russian coaches and eating disorders and general mental health crises and an obvious lack of research and no joy for the sport. And it really, as a skater, they're hard to watch. I'm starting to grow really wary of these shows about figure skating because, I don't know, for some reason they just don't ever turn out to be good. Ever. Some are really inspiring for skaters to watch. So we have Ice Princess and Yuri on Ice, I guess, for that. I don't deny that figure skating can be an ugly sport sometimes. But geez, guys, it's not that bad! But a lot of these, I feel like the sport could be subbed out for something like tennis, or basketball, or volleyball, or hockey. And it would hit the same plot points. Anyways, thank you for watching this all the way through. I am so sorry that this is nothing like the usual content that I put out. Let me know of any skating movies that I missed that you actually enjoy. Like, I'm sure I missed a bunch of, like, Hallmark-esque ones, right? I think I covered the main big ones. But I could be wrong. Let me know what you think of these movies, or any movies that you think I should watch in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.